HardTop Hotel hits the franchisor hot seat. Coming up next. Ryan, there's a ton that we're going to unpack, but first we're going to start with you. How did you accidentally fall into franchising? We'll start with the franchise story, then we'll get into the brand.
Yeah, so this is actually my second business. I ended up selling my first, a totally different business. We did timing and online registration for a bunch of running races. But when I was selling and going through the sale process, one of the acquisitions my future parent company made was a franchise, and like learned a lot about the space and just franchising in general through that. And I was like, man, I should have franchised my first business. Like that would have made a ton of sense. So I told myself if I ever came across a model that kind of made sense to franchise, I'd give it a shot.
Okay. So you're seeing it as an outsider and you're looking at the business. Do you create this from the start, or did you buy an existing business?
We created it from the start. So it's our fourth year in operation, first year franchising. The very first year, kind of the success caught us a little bit by surprise. So it ended up being my brother and I who started the business with me, actually driving around the truck, swapping people's hardtops, storing the hardtops is what we do.
So on the business front, then we'll get back into the franchise. From my standpoint, I clicked on pricing because I'm like, okay, now selfishly on the franchise side, I want to understand what the potential financial model is. When you're talking about car people, they tend to have some sort of ego. So for you to pull up and have to change it for them, it's almost like that should be happening like behind the house in the alley. But talk about how the pricing structure works and how did you start perfecting that there was a marketplace for this?
Yeah, so I think it was a lot of trial and error. The pricing model for us is a mix of day of service fees and then monthly storage fees. So swaps for us on a day of service are about $150. Monthly charges are about $70 for the storage of the hardtop. Swaps usually on both sides of the season, so one in the spring, one in the fall. We started out with more of like a flat monthly model, but it ended up one kind of hurting our cash flow because we weren't able to recapture a good amount of cash when we were actually providing service at the house. And two, it just really confused people. Like we were charging a monthly price for swapping tops for some people and then a lower one if we just showed up and just didn't do the swap. So they were like, that doesn't even make sense. So like the home service, it seems like the monthly and combined with, a day of service fee makes a lot of sense.
Okay. If I'm thinking through just operational break even, not the investment on the business, we're storage. If you don't have your own, you're going to have to invest in some sort of warehouse, right? Or
yeah. So what we actually recommend folks do starting out, which is the same way we started out, is actually using large drive-up self-storage units because you have nice month-to-month flexibility on those leases. So you can scale up and down based on the number of tops you have and where you are in the season. And then as the business grows and you kind of settle into the footprint you need, make the move to a larger warehouse type space.
Were you a Jeep owner going into this?
Yes. Yeah. Me and my wife were both Jeep owners. We lived in Boston. It was really her idea for the business. She's like, you should try this out. Like the tops are a pain to swap. And we're like, yeah, I know. We've done it before. We didn't have any storage. First starting out, we thought it was really going to be more of a strictly city thing, but it ended up kind of being the reverse. But we still get a lot of customers in the city that, just don't have space, but pretty often we're going to, nice houses, big garage. They just don't want the thing in the garage or they don't want to, really deal with it themselves.
Okay. And at $75 on a monthly fee, the pain to have to deal with storage period for it to be out of their garage, which will open up more room. And then obviously you actually doing the work to install and remove makes sense from a value proposition standpoint. To get to that break even though, like it probably wasn't that hard. You only needed a few customers on the operational side, not on having the truck and obviously the employee side, but it seems like it's fairly easy to get to break even. How do you then judge success? Like what was winning for you? Like, did you have a number of members that you wanted to get booked up?
I think the first cool number for us was 1,000 customers, which we did in our third year. And then after the third year, we've really, we still obviously look at kind of our operation up here, but most of the growth and the thought has been on the franchising side of the business.
Let's get into the brand. This might sound dumb, but if I'm a car salesman at a Jeep dealer, why would I not add this as a supplementary business because it's got a built-in customer? Like, it seems like that's a no-brainer from a franchisee standpoint. Am I crazy thinking that?
No, that's right. We get a lot of referrals from dealers. We have a little kit that we go out to them with, and it helps them sell more soft tops. It helps them with the buying conversation with everybody, because that's a really common question. Hey, what do I do with the hard top? And they just hand our marketing materials over and kind of go from there. So
what about them as a franchisee, though?
Potentially. We haven't had too many conversations with dealers that really had a strong interest, just because they're really focused more on selling vehicles and just their traditional service side. So most of the folks that we have good conversations with are owners of the vehicles. So they've kind of they felt the pain point firsthand, and obviously have an interest in starting up their own business.
I'm gonna keep pressing this for one more second, because I feel like there is, like, you think about a car salesperson, not the dealer. The dealer has all the money in the world. They're building scale. But you get down to the salesperson that has to hustle every month and hit their quota for them to continue to sell at that place. Why would they not look at this and say, boy, I could be a franchise owner and go into business for myself, or supplemental to it, when I already have I know all the customers who are buying these.
Yeah, no, they would be a really good fit. Actually, someone that works, at a dealership, either on the, sales or the service side, really.
Okay. So from a candidate standpoint, and where the state of the business is, how many franchisees do you have? What's the state of the business on the franchise side?
So like I said, first year, we have 3 franchisees that'll be starting up our first class, basically, kind of like late winter, early spring timeframe. That are ones in Colorado Springs, Philly, and kind of like the south coast of Mass, Cape Cod area.
How did they end up finding you?
2 were customers that moved out of our service area. Those were our first 2, and then the Philly group just through traditional marketing channels.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I mean, like, I think I'm going to go very, very broad stroke with this statement, or specific. There's a brand called Wild Birds Unlimited. It's a retail bird concept. They can sell franchises. They can have success with their franchisees, partly because they are super fanatical about birds, so they're already bird people. And then secondly, when they're buying into the brand, because they love being bird people, they're like, oh, I could be in business. And it is there is value somehow in that business. I use it as an example. Like, I was always fascinated with them because the persona of the buyer is very simple. Like, you can go after, like, let's say you're a doggy daycare. You can find dog lovers, but to find bird lovers, you're getting very, very specific. Here on this front, like, I think the persona is so easy to target that if the business opportunity, which we'll get into the investment in a second, if the business opportunity is sound, like, why would you not do this? I think it's controlled labor. It's doing something that you absolutely love, because if you're a car person, like, this is fun. You're driving around a cool branded thing. Like, it seems like the persona is easy. I say all that to line up the question. Has this been easier or harder than you thought, going all the way back to you saw your P firm buy a franchise? You're like, oh, we should have franchised. Like, how has what your expectations are aligned with your realities?
Yeah, I would say it's been a little harder than I thought. Not insanely hard, but I figured it would be a little easier.
Where did you want to be at this point?
Sorry.
There you go. Where did you want to be at this point?
We want to be at 5, so not massively short of that, but still a little behind.
I mean, go ahead.
I was going to say probably one of the biggest challenges in it is really our, just getting the ball rolling with franchisees. We obviously have our location here that was successful, but it's harder without having people for them to talk to outside of the franchisor.
Here's my unsolicited recommendation. I'm not going to name this burger brand, but I remember sitting with the founder. They had like 3 or 4 corporate locations. I said, what's winning? They go, oh, we're going to have 500 units in the next 5 years. 505 was their buzz term. I go, no, you're not. You're going to go 3 or 4 to 6 to 12 to 24 to 48 to 100. Like that's your pathway. So best case scenario, you can get to 100 if you scale it properly. It's like, no, you're wrong. Flash forward, they have like 8 locations. Yeah. I say that because I think don't let the tail wag the dog. Like I think what you've said, you found a point of differentiation in the marketplace from a consumer marketing standpoint. I think the pin drop is fairly easy in today's digital world. You can pin drop all of these dealerships where the customer's there. So you can be very sophisticated with franchisee onboarding. Franchising, I think everybody who franchises someone's business sets it up like, oh, you could be 100 units tomorrow. It's all bullshit. Like, yeah, to get 3 in, to have 3 in 3 different states, right? Like now you have a foundation, and so if you pour some effort in and not let the tail wag the dog, I like where the concept is. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, thanks. We do too. Our focus is really just going to be on making them as happy as possible and Smart. Making sure they feel really, really supported.
All right, let's hit the investment. How much does it cost to get in? What can I make? What does item 19 say? Answers on those?
Yeah, so our initial investment range is 124 to 191,000. Big buckets in there are the initial franchise fee of 50,000, the truck for service, grand opening marketing spend, and 3 months operating expenses.
What's the grand opening marketing spend?
30,000.
Oh, that's great. Okay, I'm happy to hear that. Like I've seen so many brands where it's like 5 to 12 is the range. So yeah. That means you're setting the expectation. I would imagine because you're a smart guy, you looked at cost of customer acquisition to set the tone so you can get to break even.
Yeah, exactly. We want to basically enter a new market with a bang. Really soak up a lot of like the low hanging fruit. Enter with a bang, basically.
Great. And do you have an item 19?
Yeah, we do. So it's our full P&L from our unit up here in Boston. So I usually tell people to, obviously look at all the different line items and try to come up with estimates, in your local region. And we also provide some other operating stats that kind of let people cobble together a pretty good understanding of the financial side. What
did you guys hit from a gross revenue standpoint?
So 701,000, and this is in 2023.
That's great.
And then profit on that, adjusted for like franchise fees and royalties, is 237.
Okay, so take that number. Curious, did you continue on about the $30,000 a year in marketing standpoint? Did you tail off, or where did that end up staying?
We tailed off a bit. So started off stronger, and then basically, trimmed it down. Our outside of the first year, minimum spend is 12,000 in future year for franchisees.
I mean, for what it's worth, because I've seen it happen so many times, your hustle and grit will always be different than a franchisee. And obviously, if you back out your success story, most of your franchisees aren't going to be able to say, I sold a business and then went in and decided to pioneer new category. They're going to be, most of the time, they're going to be first-time business owners. So I don't know if this is a perfect sell, but when I'm even looking at grand opening marketing, I tend to, even your 30 is tremendous, but it's like keep that drumbeat going beyond it, because you want to get them up to the 700. And if they pull it back and they can't offset it with how they're ingraining themselves, or going to car dealerships and building the relationships, if that extroverted mentality is not there, you want to offset that a little bit. So I would just think about that How do we keep the numbers high?
Yeah. Good point.
Now let's hit the vision. Said a little bit disappointed with not hitting the 5, but hopefully now the tail's not wagging the dog. The dog is going to wag the tail from here on out. What's the vision for the brand? Where do you see this going?
Yeah, I mean, our goal is to eventually be in every major market across the U.S. and just have people, franchisees that love the business, are making a lot of money, and are seeing it as a great decision.
Obviously, with your first 3, 2 of them you have built-in relationship with. So there's going to be a little bit more leniency on what works and what doesn't. With the one that came from traditional marketing, how did you qualify that candidate? Anything that you would have done differently in that process as you're going through this?
No, I think we try to get, a pretty fulsome understanding of who the person is and their experience set coming into the business. They were a business owner before, so this is something they're doing in addition with their children that have been involved in basically the family business as an offshoot. So, really like the experience they had there, really with running every aspect of the business. It is nice having somebody that has experienced the service just in general, because they know basically how easy it is to go online, book, how friction-free it is, that sort of thing.
I'd almost put that at the top of your, like, I always look at the franchise side. I'm like, what's the point of differentiation? What you just touched on is like, we built the technology solution to be frictionless for our customer. This is how we're building the franchise opportunity to be frictionless for our franchisee. Like that's a message that would connect with me. Obviously, like I can see people doing it, but the engineering that happened behind the franchise is what I would be buying. So I would push play back on what you just said, and I would think about repositioning the messaging slightly on your franchise site to align with that. Out of curiosity, when you're doing it, is it full-time work? Is it not as bad of a hustle as something else?
I would say like some days are busier than others in terms of just call volume and, concept overviews and various other calls. But it seems to be pretty manageable based on the size we are. I could see, years down the road where, it became more than, one person could do and a real team would have to get built out around it. But I really enjoy that part of the process now, just getting to know people, their backgrounds, seeing their interest in the business.
Average time from storage to customer's home and for the install?
Are you asking how long it takes, like how long we're on site at the house?
Yeah, average time from storage to house to install to next customer.
Yeah, it's about 30 minutes. We're on site, and then you like to try to keep your drive time as low as possible to the next house, but usually it's between 15 minutes and half an hour.
Okay, obviously the scheduler is doing some of this work, but my next question is, I would imagine in a Boston, when the spring hits, and I want this now. And you said we built this up to 1,000 customers. Is there a seasonality to the hiring of your labor that you need to find people to do it extensively when every one of your 1,000 customers wants a changeover?
Yeah, there's a lot of seasonality in the business. So we typically will hire folks a few weeks before we start up for the season, which for us is usually middle of March, which in New England is still like really pretty nasty.
Right.
And then we're busy. It's a little bit of a light ramp into the busy months. So April, May, June are all nice and busy months. The summer's active but relaxed. It's my favorite time of year because you're not doing a ton and you're making good money from the tops that are in storage. And then we ramp again in the fall, kind of like Labor Day through till like Thanksgiving, early December.
Look, I love the code that you're cracking. Me loving the code that you're cracking is one thing. When you're talking about the gross volumes that you're doing, that means you produced a good business. You have good net earnings, but you're obviously reinvesting that into the franchise. And you're in a category that is automotive adjacent, but not overly competitive in the way that you're setting this up. So I love what you're doing here. And I would imagine like your experience of selling a business is going to help you make some decisions on what you want to put in here. And I've said this a million times, but I always bet on the jockey, not on the horse. And I can see how your background is going to make this work. Like this ends up being a great widget, but I would imagine you're already thinking of the next widget that you can tap into too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love it. Well, good stuff, Ryan. Thanks for doing this. I love the story.
Thanks.
Look forward to seeing where this business goes. And I'm sure this isn't the last time we'll talk about this. So
exactly.
For Ryan, I'm Nick. This is another episode of the Franchisor Hot Seat. That was great. Good stuff.